Welcome to Granary. Please take note of the fire exits. In the unlikely event of an emergency, the muster point is located in the car park. May I please ask you now to ensure that all mobile phones are completely switched off. Please note that all photography and recording of the performance is forbidden. There will be a 15-minute interval during this show, and we ask you to vacate the auditorium during this time. Enjoy the show.
Why, I don't believe they're up yet.
That's what I said, miss. Think of how late Bo came in last night, and on top of that, my goodness, all the things the young mistress would unpack before she'd settle down.
Well, let's let them have their sleep out, of course. But they will want some fresh morning air to breathe when they do get up.
Well, upon my word, there doesn't seem to be anywhere left for him. I think I'll put them here, miss.
Well now, Berta, you're the new mistress. Oh, heaven knows it was dreadfully hard for me to part from you.
What was it like for me, miss? I just can't tell you after all these years with you two ladies.
Oh, well now, Berta, we must try to be contented, or there was nothing else to be done. Jorgen simply must have you in the house with him. He simply must. Oh, you're just so used to looking after him, ever since he was a little boy.
Yes, but I keep thinking of her lying there at home, poor thing, so helpless and all. And that new girl, too. She'll never look after a sick person properly. Never.
Oh, well, I shall manage to train her, and I shall take most of it upon myself, you know. Oh, Berta, there's no need for you to worry about my poor dear sister.
Yes, but there's another thing, miss. I'm really afraid I'll never manage to suit the young mistress.
Oh, come now! Well, perhaps at first there may be one or two things.
Because, of course, she's a fine lady, and that particular.
You can understand that, can't you, with General Gabler's daughter? Think of what she was accustomed to in the General's day. Do you remember when she came riding down the road with her father in that long black habit with the feathers in her cap?
My, yes, I should think I do. But upon my word, I never thought her and Master Jorgen would make a match of it. Not in those days.
Oh, nor did I, Berta. No, come to think of it, Berta, while it's on my mind. You mustn't call Jorgen Master any longer. No. You must call him Doctor.
The young mistress said something about that too when they came in off the boat last night. So it's true then, miss.
Oh, yes, it's perfectly true, Berta. They made him a doctor while he was abroad, while he was away this time, you know. Oh, I didn't hear a word about it, not until he told me last night at the pier.
Of course, he can do anything he can, clever like he is. But I never thought he'd go in for doctoring too.
Oh, it's not that kind of a doctor he is. Come to think of it, Berta, you may have used to call him something else, Soup. Something even grander.
Is that so, miss? And what might that be, miss?
Oh, if you only knew! Oh, if my own Joachim could look up from his grave and see what his boy has grown into. Oh, Berta. I say, Berta, why have you done that? Taken the covers off the furniture?
The mistress said I was to. Said she can't have covers on the chairs.
Oh. Are they using this room every day then?
So it seems from what the mistress said, the master, the doctor, he didn't say anything.
Good morning, my dear Jorgen.
Aunt Julie, my dear Aunt Julie. Oh, all the way out this worldly, eh?
Oh, you can just imagine. I had to get a good look at you both.
Although you haven't had anything like a proper night's rest.
Oh, that sort of thing doesn't make a bit of difference to me.
But you did get home from the pier last night all right, eh?
Oh, quite all right, I'm glad to say. Oh, Mr. Brack was so terribly kind and saw me right to my front door.
Oh, we were so sorry we couldn't give you a lift. But you saw how it was. Hedda had so much luggage that she simply had to have.
Yes, she did have a tremendous amount of luggage.
Shall I go up and ask the mistress if there's anything I can get her?
Oh, you needn't do that, Berte. She says if she wants you for anything, she'll ring.
Very well.
But do take in that suitcase, will you?
I'll put it in the attic.
Just think, Aunt Julie. I had that suitcase crammed full, just with the stuff I'd copied. You wouldn't believe what I've managed to collect going through the old archives. Curious old things that no one really knows about.
Well, Jorgen, you haven't wasted a bit of time on your honeymoon.
No, I jolly well haven't. But here, let me take your hat. Sit down.
Bless us. It's as if we still had you at the house with us.
Why, what a fine, smart hat you've got here, Aunt Julie.
I bought it because of Hedda.
Because of Hedda, eh?
Yes, so that you shan't be ashamed of me if we go out in public together.
Oh, Aunt Julie, you've simply thought of everything. Now, let's sit down and have a little chat till Hedda comes, eh?
Oh, what a blessing it is to have you again, Jorgen. As large as life, dear me, our own Jochim's boy.
And so it is great for me, too, Aunt Julie, to be here with you. You who've been my mother and my father.
Oh, yes. I know you'll always have a corner in your heart for your old aunt.
Yes, and has there been any improvement in Aunt Rena, eh?
Oh, well, we can't expect any improvement from her at this stage, Jorgen. She just lies there as she has all these years. But I pray that the good Lord will let me keep her a little while longer. For I shan't know what to do with myself otherwise, Jorgen. Especially now that I don't have you to look after any longer.
Oh, Aunt Julie.
Oh, well, just think of it, Jorgen. You're a married man. And to think it was you who carried off Hedda Gabler, the lovely Hedda Gabler, for she has so many admirers.
Well, yes. I expect a great number of my friends are going about the town pretty envious, eh?
And to think that you could have such a long honeymoon over 5 months, nearly 6.
Well, for me, it was as much a research trip as anything. I had an enormous amount of records I had to hunt through, and there was a large number of books I simply had to read.
Oh, yes, of course, quite true, but listen here now, Jorgen. Isn't there anything special you'd like to tell me?
About the trip?
Yes?
Well, nothing I haven't told you already in my letters. That I plan to take my doctorate down there, but you knew that already, Aunt Julie.
Yes, all that business, yes. But haven't you any, hopes,
Hopes?
Oh, come now. I am your old aunt, after all.
Well, of course I have hopes.
Oh.
I have the very best hopes of getting a professorship one of these days.
Oh, yes, a professorship, yes.
Or I might say there's a certainty of it, Aunt Julie, but you knew that yourself perfectly well.
Yes, of course I did, Jorgen. Perfectly true. But we were talking about your travels. That must have cost quite a lot of money, Jorgen.
Oh, well, yes, but the big fellowship took us a good part of the way.
But I can't possibly imagine how you could have made that do for 2.
Well, one can hardly expect that.
And especially since it's a lady one's travelling with. For that usually comes with a lot more expense. Very much more, so I've heard.
Well, yes, it can be rather expensive, but Aunt Julie, Hedda simply had to have that trip. She simply had to. Nothing else would have done.
Oh, yes. Well, don't worry about that, my boy. A honeymoon abroad seems quite a matter of course these days. But tell me now, Jorgen, have you had a good chance to have a lovely look at the house yet?
Oh, you bet I have. I've been wandering around ever since it was light.
And what do you think on the whole?
Oh, it's splendid. It's absolutely splendid. Oh, although I don't quite know what we're going to do with those 2 empty rooms between the back sitting room and Hedda's bedroom.
Oh, Jorgen, there'll be use for those, all in good time.
Well, yes, there certainly will. Because by degrees as I get a bigger library, eh?
Oh, yes. It was the library I was thinking of.
Oh, but Aunt Julia, I was especially glad for Hedda's sake. She often said before we were engaged that she couldn't live anywhere else except in Mrs. Falk's house.
Oh, yes, just fancy. And it's happening like that, the house being for sale, just as you had started.
Well, yes, the luck was certainly with us, eh?
Oh, but expensive, Jorgen. It will be expensive for you, all this.
Yes, it will, perhaps.
Goodness, yes.
Well, how much do you think it will cost? Roughly, eh?
Oh, I couldn't possibly tell you till all the bills come in.
But Mr. Brack arranged the easiest possible terms for me. He wrote to Hedda and told her himself.
Oh, well, don't worry about it then, my dear child. And as for the furniture and the carpentry, I have given security on them.
Oh, but my dear Aunt Julie, what kind of security could you give?
Oh, well, I've given the mortgage on the annuity.
What? You and Aunt Rena's annuity?
Yes, well, I didn't know what else to do, you see.
Oh, Aunt Julie, have you gone crazy? The annuity, the only thing you and Aunt Rena had to live on.
Oh, well, don't get so upset about it, Jorgen. It's just a formality. Yes, that's what Mr. Brack said too, for it was he who so kindly arranged the terms for me. Just a formality, he said.
Well, yes, that may be so, Aunt Julie, but all the
Because
same.
you've got your own salary to rely on now, Jorgen, and oh, goodness me. Imagine if we did have to spend a little, just at first to help. Why, it would only be a pleasure for us, Jorgen.
Oh, Aunt Julie, will you ever grow tired of sacrificing yourself for me, eh?
Have I any other joy on this earth than in smoothing the way for you? You have had neither mother nor father to turn to. Well, look here now, my dear boy. We've reached our goal. I know things may have looked black now again in the past, but oh, thank goodness you're through it all now, Jorgen.
Well, yes, everything's worked out all right in the end, eh?
Yes, and those who stood in your way, who would have stopped you from getting on, you have them at your feet. They have gone down before you. Oh, no, the one that was most dangerous to you. There he lies now, the poor misguided creature.
Have you heard anything about Ejlert? Since I've been away, I mean?
No, only that he was supposed to have brought out a new book.
What? At Lovborg? Just recently, eh?
Yes, or so they say. Well, I can't imagine there would be much in it, would you? Now, when your new book comes out, Jorgen, that would be quite a different story. What will it be about?
Oh, it's going to be about domestic crafts in Brabant, in the Middle Ages.
Oh, just fancy that you could write an entire book on that.
Well, it hasn't quite been written yet. I've still got an enormous amount of material I have to go through first.
Oh, arranging and collecting, yes? Oh, but that's what you're so good at. Oh, you wouldn't be our own Joachim's boy for nothing.
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to getting down to it. Especially now that I have my own charming house, my own home to work in.
And first and foremost, now that you have the wife that your heart was set on.
Oh, Aunt Julie, of course. Oh, Hedda. Why, that's the loveliest thing of all. I think she's coming now, eh?
Oh, good morning, my dear Hedda. A very good morning to you.
Good morning, my dear Miss Tesman. What an early visit. It was kind of you.
Oh, and has the bride slept well in her new home?
Oh, yes, thank you. Tolerably.
Tolerably. I like that, Hedda. You were sleeping like a log when I got up.
Fortunately. In any case, one has to get used to anything new, Miss Tesman, by degrees. Oh, the maid has gone and opened the window. There's a perfect flood of sunlight coming in.
Well, we'll shut it then.
No, don't do that, please. Just draw the blinds, my dear, will you? That gives a softer light.
Yes, all right. There we are. Now we've got shade and fresh air.
Yes, we certainly need fresh air in here, all these precious flowers, but won't you sit down, Miss Tesman?
Oh, no, thank you, my dear precious Hedda. Oh, I should like to, but I must see about getting home again now that I know that everything is getting on all right here, thank goodness. Oh, she does find the days very long just lying there.
Oh, Aunt Julie, give her my love and best wishes, won't you? And tell Aunt Rena I'll be in to see her later on today.
Oh, of course I will. But that reminds me, Jorgen, I almost forgot. I brought something of yours.
Oh, what is it, eh?
Look here, my dear boy.
Oh, heavens. I'm blessed. You've remembered them, Aunt Julie. Oh, my, fancy that, Hedda, dear.
Yes, my dear, what is it?
My old morning shoes. My slippers. Look!
Yes, I remember you often spoke about them while we were away.
Yes, I missed them. I missed them dreadfully. Now you shall see them.
No, thanks. It really doesn't interest me.
But just think, Aunt Rena embroidered these lying ill in bed like that, and you can't imagine how many memories are worked into them.
Not for me particularly.
Oh, well, Hedda's right about that, Jorgen.
Yes, but I think now she's part of the family.
My dear, we shall never be able to manage with this maid.
Not manage with Berta?
Oh, what makes you say that, Hedda, dear?
Look there, she's left her old hat behind her on the chair.
Oh, but Hedda...
I mean, suppose anyone were to come in and see it.
But Hedda, that's Aunt Julie's hat.
Oh, is it?
Yes, my dear, precious Hedda, it certainly is. And it isn't old either.
I really didn't look at it closely, Miss Tesman.
It's my first time wearing it. The very first it is.
And what a smart hat it is too, Aunt Julie. Really grand.
Oh, well, it isn't all that, Jorgen. A parasol? Ah, here it is. For that's mine too. Not Berta's.
A new hat and a new parasol. Just think, Hedda.
Yes, it's very nice. Charming.
Oh, Aunt Julie, before you go, take a good look at Hedda. See how nice and charming she is, eh?
Oh, well, there's nothing new in that, Jorgen. Hedda's been lovely her whole life.
But look at how plump she's grown and how well she is. How much she's filled out on
Oh,
her
be
travels.
quiet.
Well, you can't see it now that she's wearing that outfit, but I've had the opportunity.
No, you haven't any opportunity.
Well, it must be the mountain air, down there in the tea
I'm
room.
exactly the same as I was when I went away.
And so you keep saying, but you're certainly not. Don't you think so too, Aunt Julie?
Oh, our Hedda is lovely, lovely, lovely. May God bless and keep our Hedda for Jorgen's sake.
Oh, let me go.
I shall come and visit the both of you every single day.
Oh, do please, Aunt Julie.
Oh, of course I will. Oh, goodbye, goodbye.
What are you looking at, Hedda?
I'm just looking at the leaves. They're so yellow and so withered.
Well, we are well on in September now.
Yes, just think. We're already in September.
Do you think Aunt Julie was rather unlike herself today? A little bit almost formal. Whatever do you think was the matter?
I hardly know her, you see. Isn't she like that as a rule?
Well, not like she was today.
Do you think she was really upset about that business with the hat?
Oh, not much. Perhaps a little. Just at the moment.
But what extraordinary manners to throw her hat down here in the drawing room. One doesn't do that kind of thing.
Well, you can be sure she won't be doing it again, eh?
Anyway, I'll make it all right with her.
Yes, if you could, Hedda, dear.
When you go in to see them presently, you might ask her to call out for the evening.
Oh, yes, I certainly will. Oh, and there's one more thing you could do that I know would please her enormously.
Oh, what?
Well, since you are part of the family now, I was wondering if you could speak to her a little more affectionately.
Oh, no, you mustn't ask me to do that. I've told you that once before. I will try to call her aunt, and that must be enough.
Oh, all right then, but Hedda, you do now belong to...
Well, I really don't know.
Oh, what's the matter, dear?
I'm just looking at my old piano. It really doesn't go very well with all the other things in here.
Well, when I get my first salary check, we shall see about an exchange.
Oh, no, not an exchange. I don't want to get rid of it. We can put it in there in the back room, and we can have another in its place out here. Sometime or other, I mean.
Yes, we could do that.
These flowers weren't here when we came in last night.
Oh, Aunt Julie must have brought them for you.
A visiting card. We'll call again later on today. Can you guess who it's from?
No, who is it, eh?
It says Mrs. Elvsted.
Really? The district magistrate's wife. Miss Rising, that was?
Exactly, that girl with the tiresome hair that she was always showing off. An old flame of yours, I've heard.
Well, that was a long time ago, Hedda, and long before I met you, but fancy her being in town, eh?
Odd that she should call on us. I hardly know her except we were at school together.
Oh, and I haven't seen her in some time either, but I wonder how she could bear it up, living up in that hole of a place, eh?
Isn't it somewhere up there that he lives? Ejlert, Lovborg.
Well, yes, it is, up in those parts.
She's here again, ma'am. The lady who came and left the flowers an hour ago.
Oh, is she? Show her in, will you? How are you, my dear Mrs. Elvsted? It's nice to see you once more.
Yes, it's a very long time since we met.
Or we two either, eh?
Thank you for your lovely flowers.
Oh, please. I would have come here at once yesterday afternoon, but I'd heard that you were away.
Have you only just come back to town then?
Yes, I got it yesterday afternoon. I was so absolutely in despair when I heard that you weren't at home.
In despair, but why?
Dear Miss Rice, Elvsted, I mean.
There isn't anything the matter, is there?
Well, yes, there is. I don't know a living soul to turn to here in town except you.
Oh, come now, let's sit here on the sofa.
No, I feel too worried and restless to sit down.
Oh, no, you don't. Come along now.
Now, what is it, Mrs. Elvsted?
Has anything gone wrong there, at home?
Well, it hasn't. Oh, I do so want you not to misunderstand me.
Well, then, the best thing you can do, Mrs. Elvsted, is to tell us all about it.
Because that's what you've come here for, eh?
Yes, it is, of course. Well, then I must explain, if you don't already, that Ejlert Lovborg is in town again.
Lovborg is.
Really? So Ejlert Lovborg has come back again. Fancy that, Hedda.
Quite, I heard all right.
He's been here a week already. Just think of it, a whole week in this dangerous town, and alone, and all the bad company he could get into here.
But, my dear Mrs. Elvsted, why does he especially matter to you?
He was the children's tutor.
Your children's?
My husband's, I haven't got any.
Your step-children's, then?
Yes.
But was he... tolerably, I don't quite know how to put it, was he fairly steady in his habits to have been given such a job, eh?
There hasn't been a word said against him in the last 2 years.
Well, isn't that such good news? Think of that, Hedda.
I heard.
Not the least thing, I assure you. But still, when I know he's in this great city with plenty of money in his pockets, I'm so desperately worried about him now.
Well, then why not stay up there with you and your husband, eh?
Once the book came out, he was too restless and excited to stay up there with us.
Yes, Aunt Julie did say he brought out a new book.
Yes, a big new book on the history of civilization, a sort of general survey. It's been out a fortnight now, and now that it's gone so well and caused such a tremendous stir.
Well, is it something he had by him from his better days, I mean?
From some time ago?
Exactly.
No, he wrote the whole thing up at our place. Just lately, within the last year.
Well, isn't that such good news, Hedda?
Yes, indeed, if only it would last.
Have you met him here in town?
No, not yet. I actually had some trouble finding his address, but I got it at last this morning.
You know, it seems a little odd of your husband to...
Of my husband?
To
What?
send you to town on an errand like this. Not to go in and look after his friend himself.
No. Not at all. My husband doesn't have time for anything like that. And there was some shopping I had to do.
Ah, well, that's a different matter.
Yes, and that's why I do beseech you, Mr. Tesman. Do be good to Ejlert Lovborg if he comes to you, which he's sure to do because you were such good friends in the old days. And besides, you're both working in the same fields on the same subjects as far as I can make out.
Well, we were, at one time anyway.
Yes, and that's why I do implore you. Do keep a watchful eye on him, won't you? You do promise me, Mr. Tesman.
Yes, I'll only be too glad to, Miss Rice.
Elvsted.
I will do everything I can. Everything I possibly can for Ejlert. You can be sure of that.
Oh, you are being kind. Oh, thank you. Because my husband's so attached to him, you see.
You know, you ought to write to him, my dear. He may not come to see you of his own accord.
Yes, that would be best, Hedda, eh?
And the sooner the better. Now, at once, I think.
Oh, yes, if you would.
Oh, I'll write this very minute. Have you his address?
Here it is.
Good. I'll go in then. Oh, that reminds me. Where are my slippers? Ah, here they are. All right.
Now, write really kindly and affectionately, and a good long letter too.
Okay, yes, I certainly will.
But please don't say a word about my having asked you to.
Oh, of course not. That goes without saying.
That's right. Now we've killed 2 birds with 1 stone.
How do you mean?
Didn't you realise I wanted to get rid of him?
To write his letter?
And so that I could talk to you alone.
About this business?
Exactly. About that.
There really isn't anything else to tell, Mrs. Tesman. Nothing at all.
Oh, yes, there is now. There's a lot more. That much I do realise. Come down here and we'll sit and be cosy and friendly together.
I really meant to go now, Mrs. Tesman.
Oh, surely there's no hurry. Now, suppose you tell me a little bit about what your home is like.
That's the last thing in the world I wanted to talk about.
Not to me, my dear. After all, we were at school together.
Yes, but you were a class above me, and how dreadfully frightened I was of you in those days.
Were you frightened of me?
Yes, dreadfully. Because whenever we met on the stairs, you always used to pull my hair.
No. Did I?
Yes, and once you said you were going to burn it off.
Oh, that was only silly talk, you know.
Yes, but I was so stupid in those days. And since then, anyhow, we've drifted such a long, long way apart. Our circles were so entirely different.
Well, then, we'll see if we can come together again. Now, look here, when we were at school together, we used to talk like real close friends and call each other by our Christian names.
No, you're making quite a mistake.
I certainly am not. I remember it perfectly well. So we were going to tell each other everything as we did in the old days. And you were to talk to me like a real friend and call me Hedda.
Oh, this goodness and kindness. It's not a bit what I'm used to.
There. And I'm going to treat you like a friend as I did before and call you my dear Thora.
My name's Thea.
Yes, of course, I meant Thea. So, you're not used to much goodness or kindness, aren't you, Thea? Not in your own home.
If I had a home. But I haven't one, never have had.
Yes, I rather thought it must be something of that sort.
Yes.
I can't quite remember now, but wasn't it as housekeeper that you went up there in the beginning? To the district magistrates?
Actually, it was to have been his governess, but his wife, his late wife, was an invalid and ill in bed most of the time, so I had to take charge of the house too.
But then, in the end, you became mistress of the house.
Yes, I did.
Let me see. About how long ago was it now?
Since I was married?
Yes.
5 years ago now.
Yes, of course, it must be that.
Those 5 years, or rather the last 2 or 3. If you could only imagine, Mrs. Tesman, it was...
Oh, Mrs. Tesman, come there.
Yes, I will try, Hedda. If you had any idea, if you understood.
Ejlert Lovborg was living up there too for 3 years or so, I believe.
Ejlert Lovborg? Why, yes, he was.
Did you know him already from the old days in town?
Hardly at all. Well, I mean by name, of course.
No, but when you were up there then, he used to visit you and your husband.
Yes, he came over to us every day. He was giving the children lessons, you see, because in the long run I couldn't manage it all myself.
No, I should think not. And your husband, is he often away from home?
Yes, Mrs. Hedda. Being the district magistrate, he's often having to go out on circuit.
Thea, my poor little Thea. Now you're going to tell me all about it, just how things are.
Very well. You ask me about it then?
What's your husband like, Thea? You know what I mean. In everyday life. Is he nice to you?
He's very sure himself that he does everything for the best.
Only it seems to me that he must be much too old for you. More than 20 years older, surely.
Yes, there's that too. Well, with one thing or another, I'm miserable with him. We haven't an idea in common, he and I, not a thing in the world.
But isn't he fond of you all the same? I mean, in his own way.
I don't know what he feels. I think I'm just useful to him. After all, it doesn't cost much to keep me. I'm cheap.
That's silly of you.
It can't be any different. Not with him. He isn't really fond of anyone except himself, and perhaps the children a little.
And of Ejlert Lovborg there.
Ejlert Lovborg? What makes you say that?
Only it seems to me, when he sends you all the way into town after him, and besides, you said so yourself to my husband.
Yes, I did. No, I might as well tell you now as later. It's all going to come out anyway.
But my dear Thea...
Well, to be quite frank, my husband had no idea I was coming.
What? Didn't your husband know about it?
No, of course not. Anyway, he wasn't at home. He was away too. I couldn't stand it any longer, Hedda. It was absolutely impossible. I should have been completely alone up there in future.
Well, so then?
So I packed up some of my things, the ones I needed most, and very quietly, of course. And so I left the place.
Just like that? Nothing more?
No. And then I took the train straight into town.
But My dear, precious child. How did you dare risk it?
What on earth could I do?
What do you think your husband will say when you go back again?
Back there. To him.
Yes, of course.
I'm never going back there to him.
So you've left in real earnest, for good and for all.
Yes. Didn't seem to be anything else for me to do.
But, Thea, what do you think people will say about you?
Heaven knows they must say what they like. I have only done what I had to do.
What do you mean to do now? What kind of job will you get?
I don't know. I only know that I must live here, where Ejlert Lovborg lives. That is, if I must live.
Tell me, Thea, how did it happen, this friendship between you and Ejlert Lovborg?
It happened by degrees, somehow. I came to have some kind of power over him.
Indeed. And then?
He gave up his old habits. Not because I asked him to, I never dared do that, but of course he noticed I didn't like that sort of thing, and so he left off.
In fact, you've what they call reclaimed him. You have, little Thea.
Well, yes, at least he says so himself. And he, for his part, has made me into a real human being. He's taught me to think, to understand one thing after another.
Perhaps he gave you lessons too, did he?
No, not exactly lessons. But he used to talk to me about such endless numbers of things. And then came the happy, glorious moment when I began to share his work, when he let me help him.
And you did you?
Well, yes. Whenever he was working at something, we always had to write at it together.
I see, just like two good comrades.
Comrades, yes! That's just what he called it. Oh, Hedda, I ought to feel so perfectly happy. But I can't, though. Because I'm really not sure if it will last.
Aren't you sure of him than that?
There's the shadow of a woman that stands between Ejlert Lovborg and me.
Who might that be?
I don't know. Someone or other from his past. Someone he's never really forgotten.
What has he said about it?
He only touched on it once and quite vaguely.
What did he say then?
He said that when they parted, she wanted to shoot him with a pistol.
How absurd. People don't do that kind of thing here.
Yes, and that's why I thought it must be that red-headed singer that he once
may
had.
be.
Because I remember people talking about how she used to have loaded firearms.
Oh, well then, obviously she.
But just think, Hedda, now I hear that singer, well, she's back in town. Oh, I'm simply desperate.
There. Oh, here comes my husband. All this must be kept between our two selves.
Oh, yes, for heaven's sake.
Ah, there we are. The letter's finished and ready.
That's good, but I think Mrs. Elvsted wants to go now. Wait a minute, I'm going to the garden gate with her.
I say, Hedda, I wonder if Berte could see to this?
I'll tell him to.
Judge Brack is outside and ask me if he can see the master and mistress, please.
Ask Mr. Brack if he will please come in and look here. Put this letter in the post, will you?
Certainly, ma'am.
May one call so early as this?
One certainly may.
You're always welcome, my dear man. Mr. Brack, Miss Rice.
Oh,
Great pleasure.
it's nice to have a look at you in the daylight, Mr. Brack.
Any difference, do you think?
Yes, I think a little younger.
Thank you very much.
And what do you say to Hedda, my dear man? Doesn't she look well? She's positive.
Oh, do leave me out of it, please. How about thanking Mr. Brack for all the trouble he's taken?
Oh, no, it was only a pleasure, really.
Yes, you are a good friend, but here's Mrs. Elvsted longing to be off. Excuse me a moment, I shall be back again directly.
Now, is your wife fairly satisfied?
Rather. We can't thank you enough, of course. I gather there's still a little amount of rearranging, and there's a certain amount needed still. We shall have to get a few little things.
That's so, really.
But you're not having any trouble over that. Hedda said she'll see to what was needed. But please, let's sit down, eh?
Thanks. Just for a minute. Now, there's something I rather wanted to talk to you about, Tesman.
Is there? Ah, I understand. It's the serious part of the fun that's coming now, eh?
No great hurry about the financial side. However, I could wish we'd managed things a little more economically.
Oh, but my dear man, that wouldn't have done at all. You know Hedda so well. Think of her. I couldn't have asked her to live in a little suburban house.
Well, that's just the difficulty.
Besides, it can't be long now before I get my appointment.
Well, you know, a thing like that can often be a slow business.
Have you heard anything further?
Nothing definite, but that reminds me. There is one piece of news I can tell you.
Oh?
Your old friend Ejlert Lovborg has come back to town.
Oh, I knew that already, Brack.
Do you? How did you come to know?
She told us, the lady who went out with Hedda.
I see. What was her name? I didn't quite catch it.
Mrs. Elvsted.
Yes, the district magistrate's wife. Of course, it's up there he's been living.
Yes, and I hear to my great delight that he's perfectly steady again.
So I'm assured.
And that he's brought out a new book.
Yes.
And that's made quite an impression.
It's made quite an extraordinary impression.
Well, isn't that such good news? A man with such extraordinary gifts. I was afraid he'd gone under for good.
Yes, it was the general opinion about him.
I can't imagine what he'll do now. I mean, what's he going to live on?
My husband's always worrying about what one's going to live on.
Oh, but my dear, we're only talking about poor Ejlert Lovborg.
Oh, were you? What's wrong with him?
Well, he's gone through the money he inherited a long time ago, and he can't exactly write a new book every year, eh? So I wonder what's going to become of him.
Perhaps I could tell you something about that.
Oh, really?
You must remember he has relatives with a good deal of influence.
Oh, but my dear Brack, his relatives have completely washed their hands of him.
Once upon a time, they called him the hope of the family.
Oh, once upon a time, yes, but he's wrecked all that himself.
Who knows? After all, they've reclaimed him up the Elvsted's place.
Yes, and then this new book that's come out?
Well, yes, look, let's hope they get something good for him, eh? In any case, I've written to him, Hedda, and asked him rather to come out to us this evening.
My dear fellow, you're coming to my bachelor party this evening. You promised last night at the pier.
Had you forgotten it, my dear?
Yes, by Jove, I had.
In any case, you needn't worry. Isn't likely to come.
Well, why would you say that, eh?
Dear Tesman, you too, Mrs. Tesman. I can't, in fairness, leave you in ignorance of something that...
something that has to do with Ejlert Lovborg?
Has to do with both you and with him.
Good gracious, tell us, man.
You must be prepared for your appointment not to come so quickly, perhaps as you wish or expect it to.
Has anything gone wrong?
Well, there may be a little competition, perhaps, before the post is filled.
Competition? Fancy that, Hedda.
Well, well now.
But with whom? Surely never with...
That's just so, with Ejlert Lovborg.
But that's impossible. That's absolutely unthinkable.
That's what we may see, all the same.
But look here, Brack, that's absolutely inconsiderate to me. Why just think, I'm a married man. Myself and Hedda got married based on prospects. We went and got thoroughly in debt, and we borrowed money from Aunt Julle too, and why, good Lord, man, the appointment was as good as promised.
Steady, old man. No doubt you'll get the job all right. It will be contested first.
Think of that, my dear. It will be almost like a kind of sport.
But, Hedda, dear, how could you take this so casually?
I'm not doing that at all. I'm quite excited about the result.
Mrs. Tesman, it's just as well you know now how things stand before you start making those little purchases I hear you have in mind.
This can't make any difference.
Indeed. There's no more to be said. Goodbye.
When I go out for my afternoon stroll, I'll swing by and fetch you.
Yes, I don't quite know what I'm going to do.
Goodbye, Mr. Brack. Call in again soon.
Many thanks. Goodbye. Goodbye.
Goodbye, my dear Brack. You must excuse me. Well, Hedda, one should never venture into the land of romance, eh?
Do you do that?
Well, it can't be denied that it was truly romantic to go and get married and set up house simply and solely on prospects.
You may be right there.
But in any case, we have our own charming home. The home we both fell in love with. The one we used to dream of, I may almost say, eh?
Yes, it was understood, of course, that we should entertain, keep up some sort of establishment.
And how I look forward to it, seeing you play the part of the hostess to a chosen circle of our friends. But for now, Hedda, we must get along by ourselves, only to have Aunt Julle out every now and then. Oh, Hedda, it was to be so very different for you.
Naturally. No, I shan't get a manservant just at first.
Oh, a manservant? No, there can be no question of a manservant.
And that saddle horse that I was going to...
Saddle horse?
I suppose it's no use even thinking of that now.
Oh, good heavens, no, there can be no question of that either.
Well, anyhow, At least I still have one thing to kill time with.
Oh, thank heavens for that. What is it, Hedda?
My pistols, Jorgen.
Your pistols?
General Gabler's pistols.
Oh, goodness gracious, Hedda, don't play with those dangerous things. For my sake, eh?
How do you do again, Mr. Brack?
And you, Mrs. Tesman?
I'm going to shoot you, sir.
Oh, no, don't stand there aiming straight at me.
That comes of using the back way in.
Are you quite crazy?
Dear me, I didn't hit you, did I?
Stop this nonsense at once.
Well, come in then.
The deuce. Should I play that game?
Was it you were shooting?
Oh, I just stand and shoot up into the blue.
You don't mind, my dear lady? This one. I know it quite well. Let's see where we've got this case. Ah, yes. Because we are not going to be playing this little game anymore today.
Well, what in heaven's name do you expect me to do with myself?
Haven't you had any visitors?
Not a soul. I suppose everyone we know is still in the country.
Isn't Tesman at home either?
No. The minute he'd finished lunch, he tore off to his aunt's. He didn't expect you so soon.
No, I didn't think of that. That was stupid of me.
Why stupid?
Because if I had, then I should have come here a little earlier.
Well, then you wouldn't have found anyone at all. I was in my room changing after lunch.
Isn't there so much as a tiny chink in the door one could have communicated through?
You've forgotten to arrange anything like that.
That was stupid of me, too.
Well, then, we shall just have to sit down here and wait. My husband won't be home yet a while.
Never mind. I'll be patient.
Well, it was I who asked first.
Come now. Let's have a cozy little gossip all to ourselves, Madam Hedda.
Doesn't it feel like a whole eternity since we last spoke to each other? Oh, I know, a word or two last night and then again this morning, but I don't count that.
Not like this, between ourselves, alone together, do you mean?
Yes, more or less that.
Here was I every blessed day wishing to goodness you were home again.
And there was I the whole time wishing exactly the same.
You? Really, Madam Hedda? And I thinking you had thoroughly enjoyed yourself on your travels.
You may be sure I did.
Tesman was always saying so in his letters.
Oh, he did all right. Rummaging in libraries is the most entrancing occupation he knows. Sitting and copying out old parchments or whatever they are.
After all, that is his vocation in life. Partly, at least.
Yes, quite it is. And of course then one can... But no. As for me, my dear sir, I was excruciatingly bored.
Do you really mean it in sober earnest?
Well, you can just imagine it for yourself. To go a whole 6 months never meeting a soul, even remotely connected with our circle, not a soul to talk to about the things we're interested in.
Yes, I should feel the lack of that too.
And then, what's the most intolerable thing of all?
Well?
Everlastingly having to be with one and the same person.
Early and late, I know, at every conceivable moment.
What I said was everlastingly.
Well, quite, but with our good friend Tesman, I thought one should be able to...
Jorgen Tesman, one was to remember, is a learned man.
Admittedly.
And learned men are not entertaining as travelling companions. Not in the long run, anyhow.
Not even a learned man one is in love with.
Oh, don't use that sentimental word.
Why? What's the matter, Madam Hedda?
Well, you just try it for yourself. Listening to someone talking about the history of civilization early and late.
Everlastingly?
Yes, exactly. And then all this business about domestic crafts in the Middle Ages. That's the most awful part of all.
Tell me then. I don't quite see why, in that case, you
Why Jorgen and I ever made a match of it, you mean?
Well, no. Let's put it that way, yes.
After all, do you think that's extraordinary?
Yes and no, Madam Hedda.
I'd simply danced myself out, my dear sir. My time is up. Oh, no, I'm not going to say that, nor think it either.
Jove, you have no reason to.
Oh, reason. And Jorgen Tesman, one must admit that he's a thoroughly good creature.
Good and reliable, no question.
And I can't see that there's anything actually ridiculous about him. Do you think there is?
Ridiculous? I wouldn't exactly say that.
Quite so. But anyway, he's an indefatigable researcher, and it's always possible that he may get somewhere in time, after all.
I thought that you, like everyone else, believed that he was going to become a really eminent man.
Yes, so I did. But since he insisted with might and main on being allowed to support me, I don't know why I shouldn't have accepted the offer.
Looking at it from that point of view.
Well, anyhow, this is just how things are.
You've always known that I've preserved a certain respect for the marriage tie.
No, but I never had any hopes with regards to you.
All I wanted was to have a pleasant and intimate circle of friends where I could be useful to in any way possible, and I could come and go freely as a trusted friend.
Of the husband, you mean?
To be quite frank, preferably of the wife. Of the husband, too, of course. I assure you, this sort of, shall we call it a triangular relationship, it can be quite pleasant for everybody concerned.
Yes, many a time I longed for a third person on that trip, driving side by side with just one other person.
Fortunately, the wedding journey is over.
The journey will go on for a long time yet.
But one usually jumps off and walks about a little, Madam Hedda.
I never jump out.
Don't you really?
No, because there's always someone at hand who...
Looks when you leave, do you mean?
Precisely.
Come, you know.
I don't care for that kind of thing. I prefer to remain sitting where I am, alone with the other person.
But suppose now a third person were to jump on and join the other two.
Ah, well, that's quite a different matter.
Trusted and sympathetic friend.
Someone who could talk entertainingly about all kinds of interesting things.
And nothing learned about him.
Well, that certainly is a relief.
The triangle is complete.
And so the train goes on.
It was pretty hot carrying that load, Hedda. Oh, I'm absolutely streaming.
What are those books you brought with you?
Oh, Hedda, these are some new learned publications that I simply had to have.
Learned publications.
Learned publications, Mrs. Tesman.
Do you really need any more learned publications?
Oh, one can never have too many of them. Don't you agree, Brack? One must keep up to date with everything that is written and printed.
Yes, of course one does.
And look here. I've managed to get hold of Ejlert Lovborg's new book. Perhaps you'd like a read of it, Hedda?
No, thanks. Well, perhaps maybe later on.
I dipped into it on the way.
What did you think of it as a learned man?
Oh, I think it's remarkable. The balance, the judgment it has. He never used to write like this before. Anyway, I'll go in and I'll take these in with me. And then, I must tidy myself up a little too. I say, Brack, we don't need to start at once, eh?
Oh, no, there's no great hurry for some time yet.
Oh, good. I'll take my time then. Oh, Hedda, while I remember it, Aunt Julie said she can't come out to you this evening.
Can she not? Do you think it's that business with the hat that's the trouble?
Oh, no, you mustn't think that of Aunt Julie. No, the thing is Aunt Rena's pretty ill.
So she always is.
Yes, but today she's particularly bad, poor dear.
Well, then it's only natural for the other one to stay with her. I must make the best of it.
Yes, and you can't think how happy Aunt Julie was in spite of that, at how plump you'd grown on our holiday.
Oh, these everlasting aunts.
Eh? Right.
What hat was it you were talking about?
That was something that happened earlier this morning with Miss Tesman. She left her hat down there on the chair, and I pretended I thought it was the servant's.
Dear Madam Hedda, how could you do that? And such a nice old lady.
Well, I don't know. This kind of thing comes over me just like that, and then I can't stop myself. I don't know know myself how to explain it.
You aren't really happy. That's the trouble.
And I don't know why I should be happy. Perhaps you can tell me, can you?
Among other things, because you got the very home you wished for.
Do you believe that fantasy too?
Isn't there something in it?
Oh yes, something.
Very well.
There's this much in it. Last summer I used Jorgen Tesman to see me home from evening parties.
Fortunately, I was going quite another way.
True enough, you certainly were going another way last summer.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Madam Hedda. Well, you and Tesman then?
Why, we came past here one evening and he, poor creature, was tying himself in knots because he didn't know how to think of anything to talk about, and so I felt sorry for the poor learned man.
You did you?
Yes, I really did. And so, to help him out of his misery, I just said, quite casually, that I should like to live here in this villa.
No more than that?
Not that evening.
But afterwards?
Yes, my thoughtlessness had its consequences, my dear sir.
Unfortunately, our thoughtlessness all too often has, Madam Hedda.
Thank you. But you see, it was through this passion for the villa of the late Mrs. Falk that Jorgen Tesman and I found our way to an understanding. It was that led to our engagement and marriage and wedding trip and everything else. Well, as one makes one's bed, one must lie in it, I was just going to say.
This is delightful, then. So it seems all the time you weren't interested in the least.
No, heaven knows I wasn't.
But now that we've made everything more or less comfortable for you?
I seem to smell lavender and dried roses in all the rooms, but perhaps Aunt Julie brought the smell with her.
I should think it's more like the late Mrs. Falk bequeathed to you.
It reminds one of the departed, all right, like one's bouquet the day after a ball. My friend, you can't imagine how horribly bored I'm going to be out here.
There'll be some object or other in life for you to work for, like other people, Madam Hedda.
An object that would have something fascinating about it.
Preferably, of course.
Lord only knows what kind of object that could be. I very often wonder, but that's no use either.
It might be. Tell me about it.
Whether I could get my husband to go into politics, I was going to say.
Tesman? Oh, come now, things like politics aren't a bit... not at all his line of country.
I quite believe you, but suppose I could get him to, all the same.
What satisfaction would you be getting out of it, when he isn't made that way? Why do you want to make him do it?
Because I'm bored, I tell you. So you think then, do you, that it would be absolutely impossible to get him into the government?
You see, my dear lady, to do that you need to be a fairly rich man in the first place.
Yes. There we have it. It's this middle-class world that I've got into. It's that makes things so wretched, so absolutely ludicrous, because that's what it is.
I rather fancy the trouble lies somewhere else.
Where?
You've never gone through anything that really roused you.
Nothing serious, you mean?
Well, that's one way of putting it, certainly. Now perhaps that may come.
Oh, you're thinking of all the bother over that wretched professorship, but that's my husband's affair entirely. I'm not so much as wasting a thought on it.
I wasn't thinking that either. Suppose now there comes what, in rather solemn language, is called a serious claim of you. One full of responsibility. A new claim, little Madam Hedda?
Oh, be quiet. You'll never see anything of the kind.
Well, we shall talk in a year's time, I hope.
I've got no gift for that kind of thing, Mr. Brack, not for things that make claims on me.
Why shouldn't you have a gift like most other women for the calling?
Oh, be quiet, I tell you. It often seems to me that I've only got a gift for one thing in the world.
And what is that, if I may ask?
For boring myself to death. Now you know. Oh, just so. Here's our professor now.
Now then, Madam Hedda?
Hedda, Arnold Lovborg hasn't sent to say he isn't coming, eh?
No.
Ah, you'll see then. We shall have him along in a little while.
You really think he'll come?
Oh, yes, I'm almost sure of it. Because that's only a vague rumour, you know, what you told us this morning.
Is it?
Well, at least Aunt Julie doesn't believe for one moment that he'll stand in my way at all.
Then everything's quite all right.
Yes, but I really must wait as long as possible for him, if you don't mind.
There's plenty of time for that. No one will turn up in my place before 7 or 7:30.
Ah, well then. We can keep Hedda company till then and see what happens.
And if the worst comes to the worst, Mr. Lovborg can stay here with me.
Do you mean by the worst, Mrs. Tesman?
If he won't go with you and my husband.
But, Hedda dear, do you really think that would do for him to stay here with you? Remember, Aunt Julie can't come.
But Mrs. Elvsted is coming, so the three of us will have tea together.
Oh, well, that'll be all right then.
Perhaps it is the wisest plan for him.
Why?
Good Lord, my dear lady, you've often enough said hard things about my little bachelor parties, that they weren't suitable for any but men of the strongest principle.
But surely Mr. Lovborg is a man of strong enough principles now, a converted sinner.
There's a gentleman here to see you, ma'am.
Oh, show him in.
Oh, I'm sure it's he. Just fancy.
My dear Ejlert Lovborg, so at last we meet once more.
Thank you for your letter, Jorgen. May I shake hands with you too, Mrs. Tesman?
I'm glad to see you, Mr. Lovborg. I don't know whether you two...
Mr. Brack, I think.
Of course we do, some years ago.
And now he must make himself absolutely at home. Mustn't he, Hedda? For I hear you're going to settle down in town again, eh?
I am.
Well, that's only natural, of course. But look here. I've managed to get a hold of your new book. But unfortunately, I haven't yet had the time to read it.
You may as well save yourself the trouble.
Why, may I?
Because there isn't much in it.
Really? Fancy you saying that?
It's very highly spoken of, I hear.
That's exactly what I wanted. So I wrote a book that everybody could agree with.
Very wise.
Dear Ejlert.
Because now I'm going to try and build myself up a position again. To begin over again.
Oh, I see. Is that what it is, eh?
But when this one comes out, Jorgen Tesman, you must read it. For this is my first real book. The first I've put myself into.
Really? And what kind of book is that?
It's the continuation.
The continuation of what?
Of the book.
Of the new one?
Of course.
But goodness gracious, man, that one comes down to our own time.
It does. And this one deals with the future.
The future? But goodness gracious, we don't know anything about that.
No. There are one or two things to be said about it all the same. Here. You see?
But Ejlert, that's not your handwriting.
I dictated it. It's divided into two sections. The first is about the factors that will control civilization in the future. And the second part, here. This is about the probable direction civilization will take.
Amazing. It would never have occurred to me to write a thing like that.
No, it wouldn't.
I brought it with me because I thought of reading you a little bit this evening.
Oh, that's very good of you, my dear man, but this evening, I don't quite know how it's going to be managed.
Well, another time then. There's no hurry.
Well, I'll explain, Mr. Lovborg. You see, I'm having a little affair at my place tonight, chiefly for Tesman, you know.
Ah, then I won't keep you.
No, look here. Won't you give me the pleasure of joining us?
No, I can't do that. Thank you very much.
Nonsense. Please do. We shall be a small, select circle, and believe me, we shall have quite a lively time, as Mrs. Tesman put it.
I don't doubt it, but all the same...
So you could take your manuscript along and read it to Tesman there at my place. We've got plenty of rooms. You could have a reading over whiskey.
Yes, what about it, Ejlert? You could do that, eh?
Yes, but my dear, if Mr. Lovborg really doesn't want to, I'm sure he would much rather stay here and have supper with me.
With you, Mrs. Tesman?
And Mrs. Elvsted.
Oh, I met her for a moment this morning.
Did you? Yes, she's coming out, so it's almost imperative for you to stay, Mr. Lovborg. Otherwise she'll have no one to see her home.
That's true. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Tesman. Then I'll stay here.
I'll just have a word with the maid.
But look here, Ejlert. Is it this new material about the future that you're going to be giving your lectures on?
Yes.
Because I did hear in the bookshop that you're going to be giving a course of lectures here in the autumn.
I am. You mustn't think hardly of me for a Tesman.
Oh, good gracious, no.
I can quite understand that it must be rather annoying for you.
Oh, well, I can't explain. Not for my
But
sake.
I'm waiting till you've got your appointment.
You're waiting? Yes, but aren't you going to try for it then?
No, I only want a succès d'estime.
Oh, good Lord.
Well, Aunt Julie was right after all. I knew it, of course, Hedda. Oh, Ejlert Lovborg. Just think, Ejlert Lovborg isn't going to stand in our way at all.
Our way? Please leave me out of it.
What about you, Judge? What did you say to this, eh?
I should say that honor and a succès d'estime can be very pleasant things.
Well, yes, they can, but all the same.
You look to me as though you've been thunderstruck.
Well, something like that.
As a matter of fact, a thunderstorm has just passed over us, Mrs. Tesman.
Wouldn't you men like to go in and have a glass of cold punch?
By way of a stirrup cup? Wouldn't be a bad idea.
Good, Hedda. Excellent. I feel so light-hearted.
Would you too, Mr. Lovborg?
No, thank you very much. Not for me.
Oh, come now, a glass of cold punch can't be poison. And so far as I know.
Not for everybody, perhaps.
I'll entertain Mr. Lovborg in the meantime.
Oh, yes, Hedda. You do that.
I'll show you some photographs if you like. My husband and I made a trip through the Tyrol on our way home. Do you see this mountain range, Mr. Lovborg? It's the Orla group. My husband has written it underneath. Here it is, the Orla group at Moran.
Hedda Gabler.
Hush now.
Hedda Gabler.
Yes, that was my name once upon a time, in the days when we two knew one another.
And in future, for the whole of my life then, I must break myself of the habit of saying Hedda Gabler.
Yes, you must. And you'd better practice it in good time. The sooner the better, I would say.
Hedda Gabler married. And married to Jorgen Tesman.
Yes, that's what happened.
Oh, Hedda. Hedda, how could you throw yourself away like that?
Now, none of that, please.
None of what?
And this one, Mr. Lovborg, is from the Vale of Ampezzo. Just look at the mountain peaks there. What is it these queer peaks are called, my dear?
Let me see them. Oh, those are the Dolomites, dear.
Oh, yes, of course. Those are the Dolomites, Mr. Lovborg.
Hedda, dear, I just wanted to ask you if we shouldn't bring you a little punch. For you, at any rate, eh?
Why, yes, thank you. And a few cakes, perhaps.
No cigarettes?
No, thanks.
Right.
Answer me now, Hedda, my dear. How could you go and do this?
If you go on saying dear to me, I won't talk to you.
Mayn't I even do it when we're alone?
No. You can think it if you like, but you mustn't say it.
Ah, I understand. It offends your love for Jorgen Tesman.
Love. That's good.
Isn't it love, then?
There isn't going to be any kind of disloyalty anyhow. I won't have that sort of thing.
Hedda, answer me just one thing.
Look at all the good things we've got here.
Why are you bringing it yourself?
Why, because I think it's just so jolly waiting on you, Hedda, dear.
But you filled both glasses now, and Mr. Lovborg won't have any.
No, but Mrs. Elvsted will be here soon.
Oh, yes, of course. Mrs. Elvsted.
Had you forgotten about her, eh?
We've just got so absorbed in this. Do you remember that little village?
Oh, yes, that's the one below the Brenner Pass. It was there we stayed the night.
And met all those jolly tourists.
Yes, that was it. It was there. Oh, and just think, Ejlert, if we could have had you with us, eh? Oh, well, well.
Answer me just this one thing, Hedda.
Well?
Was there no love in your feeling for me either? Not a touch, not a flicker of love in that either.
I wonder if there actually was. To me it seems as though we were two good comrades, two real close friends. You especially were absolutely frank.
It was you who wanted that.
When I look back at it, there was really something fine, something enthralling. There was a kind of courage about it, about this hidden intimacy, this comradeship that not a living soul so much as guessed at.
Yes, there was, Hedda, wasn't there? When I came up to see your father in the afternoons, and the general used to sit right over by the window reading the papers, with his back to us.
And we used to sit on the corner sofa.
Always with the same illustrated paper in front of us.
Yes, for lack of an album.
Yes, Hedda. And when I used to confess to you, told you things about myself that no one else knew in those days, sat there and owned up to going about whole days and nights blind drunk. Days and nights on end. Oh, Hedda, what sort of power in you was it that forced me to confess things like that?
Do you think it was some power in me?
Yes, how else can I account for it? And all these questions you used to put to me, indirectly.
Which you understood so perfectly well.
To think you could sit and ask questions like that. Quite frankly.
Indirectly, mind you.
Yes, but frankly, all the same. Cross-question me about all that kind of thing.
You answered willingly enough.
Yes, that's just what I can't understand looking back. But tell me now, wasn't it love that was at the bottom of that relationship? Wasn't it on your side as though you wanted to purify and absolve me when I made you my confessor? Wasn't it that?
No. Not quite.
What made you do it then?
Is it so impossible for you to understand that a young girl, when there's an opportunity, in secret,
Well?
that one should want to have a glimpse of a world that one isn't allowed to know about?
So that was it then?
That too, I rather think.
The bond of our common hunger for life. But why couldn't that have gone on in any case?
That was your own fault.
It was you who broke it off.
Yes. When there was an imminent danger of our relationship becoming serious, you ought to be ashamed of yourself, Ejlert Lovborg. How could you take advantage of your unsuspecting comrade?
Oh, why didn't you make a job of it? Why didn't you shoot me down when you threatened to?
Yes, I'm as terrified of scandal as all that.
Yes, Hedda. You are a coward at bottom.
An awful coward. But it was lucky enough for you, and now you have consoled yourself so delightfully at the Elvsteds.
I know what Thea has told you.
Have you told her something about us too?
Not a word. She's too stupid to understand a thing like that.
Stupid?
She is stupid about that sort of thing.
And I'm a coward. But now I'm going to confess something to you.
Well?
That my not daring to shoot you down.
Yes?
That was my worst piece of cowardice that night.
Oh, Hedda Gabler. Now I see a glimpse of the hidden foundation of our comradeship, you and I. Then it was your passion for life.
Take care. Don't assume anything like that. There you are at last, Thea, darling. Come along in. Oh, my precious Thea. You can't think how I've been longing for you to come.
Oughtn't I go in and say a word or two to your husband?
Oh, not a bit of it. Let them be. They're going out directly.
Are they going out?
Yes, they're going to make a night of it.
You're not, are you?
No.
Mr. Lovborg is staying here with us.
It is nice to be here.
Oh, no, Thea, my precious child. Not there. You're coming over here right beside me. I want to be in the middle.
All right. Just as you like.
Isn't she lovely? Just to look at.
Only to look at.
Yes. Because we two, she and I, we really are comrades. We trust each other absolutely. That's how it is we can sit and talk to each other quite frankly.
Nothing indirect about it, Mr. Lovborg.
Oh, well.
Oh, Hedda, just think he says I have inspired him too.
He says that, does he?
And then she has the courage that leads to action, Mrs. Tesman.
Good gracious me, courage.
Immense, when her comrade is concerned.
Ah, courage, yes, if one only had that.
What do you mean?
Then perhaps one could even live at last. But now, my dear Thea, you must have a nice cold glass of punch.
No, thank you. I never drink anything like that.
Well, you then, Mr. Lovborg.
Thank you, I don't either.
No, he doesn't either.
But suppose I want you to.
That wouldn't alter it.
So I then, poor thing, have no power over you at all.
Not where that's concerned.
But joking aside, I think you ought to all the same, for your own sake.
Hedda, no.
How do you mean?
Or rather, on account of other people.
Really?
Otherwise, people might easily get the idea that you didn't feel absolutely secure, not really sure of yourself.
People may think what they like for the present.
Exactly.
I saw it so plainly with Judge Brack just this minute.
What did you see?
That contemptuous smile of his when you were afraid to go in there with them.
Afraid? Naturally, I prefer to stay here and talk to you.
That was quite understandable, Hedda.
But Judge Brack couldn't be expected to guess that, and I noticed too that he smiled and glanced at my husband when you were afraid to go to this harmless little party with them either.
Afraid? Did you say that I was afraid?
I don't, but that's how Judge Brack understood it.
Let him then.
So, you're not going with them?
I'm staying here with you and Thea.
Yes, of course, Hedda.
There. Quite immovable. A man of unshaken principles, you know. That's what a man should be. Now, wasn't that what I said to you this morning when you came in here in such a state of distraction?
Distraction?
Hedda.
Now you see for yourself. There's not the slightest need for you to go about in this deadly anxiety. There. Now we can all three be cheerful.
What on earth is all this, Mrs. Tesman?
Hedda, heavens, what are you saying? What are you doing?
Keep quiet, that detestable Judge Brack will hear you.
So it was deadly anxiety, on my behalf.
Hedda, how could you?
So that was my comrade's absolute faith in me.
Oh, my dear, don't just listen to me
Your
before
health,
you...
Thea.
Hedda, did you want this to happen?
Want it? I? Are you crazy?
And a health to you too, Mrs. Tesman. Thank you for the truth. Here's to it.
Now then, no more for now. Remember, you're going to a party.
No.
Now, Thea, my dear, tell the truth.
Yes.
Did your husband know that you had followed me?
Hedda, do you hear what it's asking me?
Was it an understanding between you and him that you should come to town and spy on me? Perhaps it was he himself who made you do it. Ah, yes. No doubt he wanted me in the office again. Or did he miss me at the card table?
Ejlert.
Health to the old district magistrate, too.
No more questions. Remember, you're going out to read your book to my husband.
It was stupid of me, Thea. All this. To take it like that, I mean. And don't be angry with me, dear old friend. You shall see, you and the others, that even if I came to grief once, yet now I'm on my feet again. Thanks to your help, Thea.
Thank heaven.
Well, Mrs. Tesman, it looks like our time is up now.
I expect it is.
Mine too, Mr. Brack.
Ejlert, don't.
They can hear what you're saying.
You were so kind as to ask me to join.
Are you coming after all?
Yes, thank you very much.
I'm delighted.
Because I should like to show you one or two things before I hand it in.
Oh, fancy. That'll be jolly. But, Hedda, how are you going to get Mrs. Elvsted home, eh?
Oh, we'll manage that somehow.
Mrs. Elvsted. I'll come back again and fetch her, of course. Round about 10 o'clock, Mrs. Tesman. Will that do?
Certainly, that'll do beautifully.
Oh, that'll be all right then. But, Hedda, you mustn't expect me as early as that, eh?
My dear, stay as long as ever you like.
I'll wait here then, Mr. Lovborg, till you come.
All right, Mrs. Elvsted.
So the procession starts, gentlemen. I shall hope we'll have a lively time, as a certain charming lady puts it.
If only that charming lady could be there, invisible.
Why invisible?
So as to hear a little of your gaiety uncensored, Mr. Brack.
Oh, well, I shouldn't advise the charming lady to try.
Oh, Hedda, you really are priceless. Just think.
Goodbye, ladies. Goodbye.
About 10 o'clock.
Hedda, where is this all going to end?
10 o'clock, when he will come. I can see him with vine leaves in his hair, flushed and confident.
Yes, if only it would be like that.
And then, you see, he'll have got control of himself again, and he will spend the rest of his days as a free man.
Heavens, yes, if only he would come like that as you see him.
He will come like that. So and no otherwise. You go on doubting him as long as you like. I believe in him, and now we'll try to...
There's something behind all of this, Hedda.
True. There is. I want, for once in my life, to have power over a human being's fate.
Haven't you got that?
No, I haven't, and never have had.
Not over your husband's?
That would be worth having, wouldn't it? Oh, if you could only see how poor I am, and here you are offered such riches. I think I shall burn your hair off after all.
Let go! Let go, Hedda! I'm frightened of you.
Tea is laid in the dining room, ma'am.
Good. We're coming.
No, I'd rather go home alone at once.
No, you will stay and have tea first, you little goose. And then, at 10 o'clock, Ejlert Lovborg will come with vine leaves in his hair.
suppose not yet. Well, has anyone come?
Yes, Grace just been with this letter.
A letter? Give it to me.
It's for the doctor, ma'am.
Oh.
It was Miss Tesman's mate who came with it. I'll just put it here on the table.
Yes, do. It'll very soon be light now.
It's quite light, ma'am.
Why, it's broad daylight. And still not back.
Oh, bless you, ma'am. I thought this was how it would be.
You thought so?
Yes. When I heard a certain someone had come back to town again. Well, and when he went off with them. Once heard enough about that gentleman before today.
Don't speak so loud, you'll wake Mrs. Tesman.
Gracious, yes. Let her sleep. Poor thing. Shall I put a bit more in the fire, miss?
No, thank you, not for me.
Very well.
What's that?
It was only the maid.
In here? Oh, yes, I remember now. What's the time, Thea?
It's past 7.
What time did my husband get back?
He isn't back.
Still not back?
No one's come back at all.
And we sat here and kept ourselves awake, waiting up for them till nearly 4 o'clock.
And how I waited.
Well, we might have saved ourselves that trouble.
Did you get a little sleep afterwards?
Oh, yes, I slept quite well, I think. Didn't you?
Not a wink. I couldn't, Hedda. It was simply impossible.
There. There's nothing to worry about. I can see perfectly well what's happened.
Why? What? Tell me what you think, please.
Well, of course, they kept things up frightfully late at the judge's.
Heavens, yes, they must have done. But all the same,
And then you see my husband didn't like to come in and disturb us by ringing in the middle of the night. Perhaps he didn't much care to either. Not straight after making a lively night of it.
Yes, but where could he have gone?
Why, he's gone up to his aunt's and stayed there, of course. They keep his old room ready.
No, he can't be with them because a letter came a little while ago from Miss Tesman. There it is.
Really? Yes, that's certainly from Aunt Julie. It's her handwriting. Well then, they stayed on at the judge's place, and Ejlert Lovborg, he's sitting, reading to him with fine leaves in his hair.
You're just saying things you don't believe yourself, Hedda.
You really are a little goose, Thea.
Well, suppose I am. Worse luck.
And you look simply tired to death.
I am tired to death.
Well then, you're going to do as I say. You're going to go into my room and you're going to lie down on the bed for a little while.
No, I shan't sleep anyway.
Yes, you are too.
But surely your husband must be home soon, and I must find out at
I'll
once.
let you know all right when he comes.
You do promise me, Hedda, don't you?
You may be sure I will. You just go in and go to sleep in the meantime.
Thank you. I'll try to.
Is there anything you want, ma'am?
Yes, will you make up the fire? I'm simply freezing here.
Bless us. I'll have it warm in no time. There was a ring at the front door, ma'am.
You go and answer it then. I'll see to the fire myself.
It'll soon burn up.
Good morning.
Hedda! What on earth? What as early as this, eh?
Yes, I got up very early today.
Oh, no, I was so certain you were lying asleep still. Just fancy!
Don't speak so loudly. Mrs. Elvsted is lying down in my room.
Oh, did Mrs. Elvsted stay the night here?
Of course. Nobody came to fetch her.
Well, that's true. Nobody did.
Well, did you have a good time at the judges?
Had you been worrying about me, eh?
No, that would never occur to me. I was just asking whether you had a good time.
Well, it was rather jolly for once. Mostly at the beginning, because then Ejlert read me some of his book. We got there more than an hour too soon. Just fancy. And Brack had so much to see to, but then Ejlert read to me.
Well then, tell me about it.
Oh, Hedda, you can't think what kind of a book that's going to be. I should think it's one of the most remarkable things ever written. Just think.
No doubt that doesn't interest me.
But when he had read it, a perfectly detestable feeling came over me.
Detestable?
There I was, envying Ejlert Lovborg for being able to write a thing like that. Just think.
Yes, I am.
And then to know what the gifts he has, yet he's quite irreclaimable. What a tragedy, eh?
You mean, I suppose, that he is more spirit than other people?
Oh, no, the point is there's not a bit of moderation in him.
And what happened in the end?
Oh, well, I really think the best way to describe it, Hedda, was wild.
Did he have vine leaves in his hair?
Vine leaves? No, I didn't notice any, but he made a long, wandering speech in honor of a woman who had inspired him in his work. Well, that was how he put it.
Did he say who she was?
No, he didn't mean to do that, but I can't imagine it could be anyone but Mrs. Elvsted. You watch.
Oh, well. Where did you part from him then?
Oh, on the way back. The last of us broke up at the same time, and Brack came along to get a breath of fresh air, and so you see we agreed to see Ejlert home, because to tell the truth, he'd taken on far more than he could carry.
Yes, I can quite imagine that.
But here's the extraordinary part of it, Hedda. Or rather, I should say the sad part of it. I'm almost ashamed to tell you, for Ejlert's sake.
Oh, go on, so?
Well, as we were on our way home, you see, I fell a little behind the others. Just for a minute or two, you see.
Yes, but what then?
Well, just as I was hurrying to catch them up, what do you think I found by the roadside, eh?
No, how could I know?
Well, you mustn't say anything about it to anyone now, Hedda. Promise me, for Ejlert's sake. Just think, I found this.
Isn't that the parcel he had with him yesterday?
Yes, it's the whole of that precious, irreplaceable manuscript of his. And that's what he's gone and lost, without noticing. It's such a sad...
But why didn't you give the packet back to him at once, then?
Oh, I didn't dare to, and not in the state he was in.
Didn't you tell any of the others you found it either?
No, I didn't. For Ejlert's sake, you know.
So then, there's no one who knows you've got Ejlert Lovborg's manuscript?
Well, no, and no one must find out either.
What did you talk to him about afterwards, then?
Oh, I didn't see him again, because you see, when we got out onto the street, him and 2 or 3 of the others just got away from us. Just think, eh?
Oh, they must have seen him home, then.
Yes, they must have, and Brack went home too.
Wherever have you been since?
Well, I and some of the others went on home with one of the lively lads and had morning coffee at his place, or night coffee, I should put it, but as soon as I've had a moment's rest, and when I think Ejlert's up to it, poor fellow, I'll dash over to him with it at once.
No, don't give it up. Not directly, I mean. Let me read it first.
Oh, I couldn't do that, Hedda. I really couldn't.
You couldn't?
No, you can't imagine how frantic he'll be when he realises he's missed it. Just think, he's got no copy of it. He said so himself.
But can't a thing like that be written again, then rewritten?
Oh, I don't think that would ever work. It's a matter of inspiration, you know.
Yes, of course. I suppose that's it. Oh, by the way, there's a letter here for you.
Really?
It came early this morning.
Oh, Hedda. It's from Aunt Julle. Hedda, she says poor Aunt Rena's dying.
Well, that was to be expected.
And that if I want to see her again, I must be quick. I'll run over there at once.
Run.
Hedda, my dear, do you think you could see it in yourself to come along with me, eh?
Oh, no, don't ask me to do that. I don't want to think of illness or death. You mustn't ask me to have anything to do with ugly things.
All right, then. My coat. Mom, Where are my gloves? Yes. Hedda, you don't think I'll be too late, eh?
Just Brack's outside and asking if he can come in.
At this moment? No, I really can't see him now.
But I can. Ask the judge to come in. The parcel.
Yes, give it to me.
No, I'll keep it for you till you get back. Well, you are an early bird.
Don't you think so? Are you going out too?
Yes, I really must go and see the aunt. Just think, the invalid one, she's dying, poor thing.
Dear, is she? Then you certainly mustn't let me keep you at such a serious moment.
Yes, I really must be off. Goodbye.
It seems to have been rather more than lively at your place last night, Mr. Brack.
So much so that I haven't had my clothes off, Madam Hedda.
Not you either.
As you see. What has Tesman been telling you about the night's adventures?
Oh, just a dull story that they'd gone and had coffee somewhere.
I know all about that coffee party. Ejlert Lovborg wasn't with them, I think.
No, they'd seen him home before that.
And Tesman, too?
No, but some of the others, he said.
Jorgen Tesman really is a simple soul, Madam Hedda.
Heaven knows he is. Is there something behind this, then?
Yes, it's no good denying.
Well, then, let's sit down, my friend, and you can tell your story. Well?
See, I had good reason for keeping track of my guests last night. Or rather, some of my guests.
And I suppose Ejlert Lovborg was one of them.
I must admit he was.
Now you're making me really curious.
Do you happen to know where he and a few others spent the rest of the night, Madam Hedda?
If it's the kind of thing that can be told, then tell me.
It can be told, all right. They fetched up at an extremely lively party.
Of the lively kind.
The very liveliest.
Go on, please. I want to hear some more.
Lovborg had an invitation beforehand as well. I knew all about that. He refused to go then because he's turned over a new leaf now, as you know.
Yes, up at the Elvsteds. But he went then, all the same.
Yes, you see, Madam Hedda, unfortunately the inspiration took him at my place last night.
Yes, I gather he found inspiration there.
A pretty violent inspiration. Anyway, he's changed his mind, I imagine, for we men are unfortunately not always so firm in our principles as we ought to be.
Ah, but I'm sure you are an exception, Mr. Brack. But what about Lovborg?
Well, to be brief, the end of it was that he fetched up at Mademoiselle Diana's rooms.
Mademoiselle Diana's?
Yes, it was Mademoiselle Diana who was giving the party for a select circle of her lady friends and admirers.
Is she a red-haired woman?
Precisely.
Some kind of a singer?
Yes, among other things. And moreover, a mighty huntress of men, Madam Hedda. You must have heard her spoken of. Ejlert Lovborg was one of her warmest supporters in his heyday.
What happened then in the end?
Well, in the end, it seems to have ended on a less than friendly note. Mademoiselle Diana seems to have changed from a most tender reception to downright violence.
To Lovborg?
Yes. He accused her or her friends of having robbed him, declared his pocketbook had gone, and other things too. In fact, he seems to have made an appalling scene.
And what was the result?
The result was a general fight in which both the ladies and the gentlemen were involved. Luckily, the police arrived in the end.
The police too?
Yes, but it looks like being a costly game for Ejlert Lovborg, the crazy fool.
Really?
Yes. You see, he appears to have put up a violent resistance. He hit one of the constables over the head and tore his coat to pieces, so he had to go to the police station too.
How do you know all this?
From the police themselves.
So that's how it was then. He had no vine leaves in his hair.
Vine leaves, Madam Hedda?
But tell me now, what is your real reason for following up Ejlert Lovborg's movements like this?
Obviously, it can't be a matter of complete indifference to me if it comes out of the trial that he came straight from my place.
Will there be a trial too?
Of course. However, that may pass. But as a friend of the house, I felt bound to give you and Tesman a full account of his night's exploits.
And why, Mr. Brack?
Because I have a shrewd misgiving that he means to use you as a kind of a screen.
Why, how can you imagine such a thing?
Lord, we're not blind, my dear lady. You watch. This Mrs. Elvsted, she won't be leaving town again in a hurry.
Well, even supposing there is something between them, there must be plenty of other places where they can meet.
No other home. Every decent house will be closed to Ejlert Lovborg from now on.
And so ought mine to be, you mean?
Yes. I admit it would be extremely unpleasant to me if this man were on a firm footing here. If he were to force his way in, superfluous, an intruder into...
Into the triangle.
Precisely. simply amount to me finding myself without a home.
Yes, the only rooster in the pen, that's your idea.
Yes, that is my idea. And I will fight for that idea with all the means at my command.
You really are a dangerous person when it comes to the point.
Do you think so?
Yes, I'm beginning to think so now. I'm heartily glad you have no hold or power over me, and I hope you never will.
Well, my dear Madam Hedda, you may be right there. Who knows what I mightn't prove capable of in that case?
Now look here, Mr. Brack, that almost sounds as though you were threatening me.
Far, far from it. The triangle, you see, is best formed and maintained by free consent.
That's what I think too.
Yes, I've said all I've wanted to, and I must see about getting home again. Goodbye, Madam Hedda.
Are you going through the garden?
Yes, it's shorter for me that way.
And what's more, it's a quiet way.
Quite. I've nothing against quiet ways. In fact, they can be quite attractive at times.
When someone's practicing shooting, you mean?
I don't think people shoot their farmyard roosters.
No, not when one has only the one.
And I tell you, I must go in and I will. There!
Well, Mr. Lovborg, it's rather late to come and fetch Thea.
Or rather early to come and call on you. I apologize.
How do you know that she's still with me?
They said at her lodgings that she'd been out all night.
Did you notice anything about the people when they said that?
Notice anything about them?
I mean, did it look as though they were drawing their own conclusions?
Oh, yes, of course. That's true. I am dragging her down with me. Actually, though, I didn't notice anything. Tesman isn't up yet?
No, I don't think so.
When did he get home?
Pretty late.
Did he tell you anything?
Yes, I gather things have been very merry at Judge Brack's.
Nothing more?
I don't think so, but anyhow, I was so terribly sleepy.
Ejlert, at last!
Yes, at last. And too late.
What is too late?
Everything's too late now. It's all up with me.
No, don't say that.
You'll say so yourself when you hear.
I won't hear anything.
Perhaps you'd rather talk to her alone, if so I can go.
No, you stay too, please. I beg you to.
Yes, but I won't hear anything, I tell you.
It's not last night's escapades I want to talk about.
What is it then?
Just this. Our ways must part now.
Part?
I knew it.
Because I don't need you anymore, Thea.
And you can stand there and say that. Not need me anymore. But I can still help you, can't I? Surely we are going on working together.
I don't propose to work in future.
What shall I do with my life?
You must try to go on living as though you had never known me.
I can't do that.
Try to, Thea. You must go home again.
Never in this life. Where you are, I will be too. I won't let myself be driven away like this. I want to be there with you when the book comes out.
Oh, of course, the book.
My book and Thea's, for that is what it is.
Yes, that's what I feel it is too. And that's why I have a right to be there with you when it comes out. I want to see honour and respect showered on you again. And the joy, I want to share the joy with you.
Thea, our book will never come out.
Never come out.
Can't ever come out.
Ejlert, what have you done with the manuscript?
Yes, the manuscript.
Where is it?
You better not ask me, Thea.
I want to know, and I have a right to know at once.
The manuscript. Oh, well. I have torn the manuscript into 1,000 pieces.
No. No.
But that's not...
Not true, you think?
Oh, well, of course it is. If you say so yourself, it just sounded so fantastic.
True all the same.
Torn his work into pieces.
I have torn my own life to pieces. Why shouldn't I tear up my life's work, too?
Did you do it last night, then?
Yes, I tell you, into 1,000 pieces, and scattered them out in the fjord. Far out. There at least there is clean sea water. Let them drift in it. Drift with the wind and the tides, and after a time they will sink. Deeper and deeper. As I shall, Thea.
Do you know, Ejlert? This, what you have done, all my life, will seem to me as if you had killed a little child.
You are right. It is like murdering a child.
But how could you? I had to share the child too.
Oh, the child.
It's all over then. I'll go now, Hedda.
You're not going to leave town, are you?
I don't know myself what I'm going to do. Everything is dark ahead of me now.
You're not going to see her home then, Mr. Lovborg.
Aye? Through the streets. Suppose people were to see her walking.
Of course, I don't know what else happened to you last night, but is it something so absolutely irreparable?
It won't stop at last night only. I know that well enough. But the point is, I don't want to live that kind of life. I don't want to start again anymore now. It is the courage to live and to challenge life that she has broken in me.
That pretty little fool has played her part in a human being's fate. Still, how could you treat her so callously all the same?
Oh, don't say it was callous.
To go and destroy what has filled her soul all this long, long time. You don't call that callous?
I can tell you the truth, Hedda.
The truth?
Promise me first. Give me your word that Thea shall never know what I tell you.
You have my word for it.
Good. Then I will tell you that that was not the truth. The story I told you just now?
About the manuscript?
Yes. I didn't tear it to pieces, nor throw it into the fjord either.
Well, but where is it then?
I have destroyed it just the same. Utterly and completely, Hedda.
I don't understand all this.
Thea said that what I had done was as good as child murder too.
Yes, that's what she said.
But that, killing his child, it's not the worst thing a father can do to it.
That's not the worst thing.
No. It was that worst thing that I wanted to save Thea from hearing.
And what is it then, that worst thing?
Suppose now, Hedda, that a man, along towards morning, say, after a wild, righteous night, came home to his child's mother and said, "Look here, I've been here and there in such and such places, and I took the child with me in such and such places, and I lost the child. Lost it completely. The devil knows what hands it's fallen into, who's got it in his clutches."
But when all's said and done, well, this is only a book.
Thea's whole soul was in that book.
Yes, I understand that.
Then you understand also that there is no future before us, her and me.
What are you going to do then?
Nothing. Only make an end of the whole business. The sooner the better.
Ejlert Lovborg, listen to me. Could you not see to it that it is done beautifully?
Beautifully? With vine leaves in the hair, as you used to imagine once upon a time?
No, not vine leaves. I don't believe in that anymore, but beautifully all the same. For once. Goodbye. You must go now, and don't come here again.
Goodbye, madam. Remember me to Jorgen and Tesman.
Wait. You will have a souvenir to take with you.
Is that the souvenir?
Do you recognize it? It was aimed at you once.
You should have used it then.
There it is. Use it yourself now.
Thanks.
And beautifully, Ejlert Lovborg. Promise me that.
Goodbye, Hedda Gabler.
Now I'm burning your child, Thea.
You,
with your curly hair. I'm burning it. Your child and Ejlert Lovborg's. I'm burning it. Burning your child.
Yes, Hedda. Here I am, dressed in mourning. Because my poor sister's trials are over at last.
I have heard already, as you see, my husband sent a note out to me.
Yes, he promised he would. But I thought that to Hedda, here in the house of the living, I ought myself to bring the news of death.
That was kind of you.
Oh, Rena should not have died at such a moment. Hedda's home ought not to be sad just now.
She died very peacefully, didn't she, Miss Tesman?
Oh, it was such a beautiful, peaceful release. Oh, she had the unspeakable happiness of seeing Jorgen once more, so that she was really able to say goodbye. Perhaps he hasn't come home yet.
No, he wrote that I shouldn't expect him just yet, but do sit down.
Oh, no, my dear, precious Hedda, I should like to, but, oh, she has to be prepared and made ready as best I can. She shall go to her grave looking beautiful.
Is there nothing I can help you with?
Oh, Hedda Tesman ought not to do that kind of thing. Nor dwell on the thought. Not at such a time, certainly not.
Thoughts, they're not so easily mastered.
Yes, well, that is how the world works, isn't it? We shall be sewing at home for Rena. But there will be sewing to be done here, too, I know. But that will be of a different kind, thank God.
Oh, it's a good thing that you are back at last.
Are you here, Aunt Julie? With Hedda? Fancy.
Yes, well, I was just going again, my dear boy. Well, have you seen any of those things that you promised to do?
No, I'm really afraid I've forgotten half of them. I must run in again and see you tomorrow. My head is just so muddled today, I can't keep my ideas together.
Oh, but my dear Jorgen, you mustn't take it like this.
No, how then do you think?
Oh, you must be glad in your grief. Glad that this has happened as I am.
Yes. You're thinking of Aunt Rena, of course?
It will be lonely for you now, Miss Tesman.
Oh, just at first, perhaps, but I know that Rena's little room shan't stand empty for long.
Really? Who do you want to take it, eh?
Oh, there is always some poor sick person in need of caring and attention, unfortunately.
Do you really want to take a burden like that on you again?
Burden? Oh, God forgive you, my child. I have never seen it as a burden.
But if some strange person is going to come in, I don't see...
Oh, one makes friends with sick folk quite quickly, I understand. But I need something to live for too. Yes, I too. But thank God there's always something or another that an old aunt can lend a hand with around here, eh?
Don't bother about things here.
Just think how happy we three could be together if... Oh, nothing. It'll all come right. Let's hope so, eh?
Well, it seems as though the both of you have a lot to talk to each other about, eh? Oh, and perhaps Hedda has something to tell you too, Jorgen, eh? I must see about getting home again. Dear, how strange it is to think of that Rena is with us and with their own Joachim too.
Yes. Think of it, Aunt Julie, eh?
I almost think the death has affected you more than it has her.
Oh, it's not just Aunt Rena's death, it's Ejlert too. I'm just so worried about him.
Has anything fresh happened to him?
No, I meant to run over to him this afternoon and tell him that the manuscript was in safekeeping.
You didn't find him then?
No, he wasn't at home, but afterwards I ran into Mrs. Elvsted and she said he'd been here early this morning.
Yes, directly you'd gone.
And that he'd said that he'd torn up the manuscript.
He insisted he had.
Oh, goodness gracious, he must have been absolutely off his head. And so, of course, you didn't dare give it to him, did you?
No, he didn't take it.
But you did tell him that we had it.
No, you didn't tell Mrs. Elvsted we had, did you?
Oh, I didn't quite like to do that, but you ought to have told him himself, Hedda. Suppose he goes off and does himself some sort of an injury. Where is the manuscript, Hedda? Look, I'll dash over to him with it at once. Let me have the purse.
I haven't got it any longer.
What on earth do you mean?
I have burnt it. Every last scrap of it.
You've burnt it! You've burnt Ejlert Lovborg's manuscript!
Don't scream, the maid might hear you.
Oh, good God, that's simply impossible!
Well, it's true all the same.
But Hedda, do you realise what you've done? It's against the law to treat lost property like that. You ask Judge Brack, he'll tell you.
I should advise you to talk about it with Judge Brack or with anyone else.
Oh, but Hedda, how could you do something so unheard of? How could an idea like that come into your head? How could you let it come over you? Tell me that, eh?
I did it for your sake, Jorgen.
For my sake, eh?
When you came in the morning and said that he'd been reading to you.
Yes, what about it?
You admitted then that you envied him his work.
Oh, well, goodness gracious, Hedda. I didn't mean it literally.
All the same, I couldn't bear the thought of someone else throwing you into the shade.
Hedda, is it true what you're saying? But I've never known you to show your affection in this sort of a way before.
Well then, you'd better know that just at present... No, you can go and ask Aunt Julie. She'll tell you all about it.
I think I understand. Good heavens, Hedda. Can it be possible, eh?
Don't shout so the maid might hear you.
Oh, the maid. No, you really are priceless, Hedda. Oh, it's only Berta. I'll tell Berta myself.
Oh, it'll be the death of me. It'll be the death of me, all this.
What will, Hedda, dear?
This grotesque nonsense, Jorgen.
Nonsense? That I'm so delighted, but... Perhaps I'd better not say anything to Berta all the same, eh?
Oh, why not that too?
No, not quite yet, but Aunt Julie must certainly know about it, and that too, you're beginning to call me Jorgen. Oh, Aunt Julie will be so glad, Hedda. She'll be so glad.
When she hears that I have burnt Ejlert Lovborg's manuscript for your sake.
Oh, yes, that business of the manuscript, but no one must get to know about that. But that you're beginning to feel this way towards me, Hedda. Aunt Julie must certainly hear about that. I should wonder, though, is this kind of thing usual for young wives, eh?
You'd better ask Aunt Julie that too, I think.
Yes, I certainly will, but... the manuscript. Oh, it's dreadful to think of poor Ejlert all the same.
Hedda, my dear, I hope you don't mind my coming again.
What's the matter, Thea?
Is it Ejlert Lovborg again?
Yes, I'm dreadfully worried that some accident has happened to him.
Do you think so?
Good heavens, what makes you say that, Mrs. Elvsted?
Why, because I heard them talking about him today at the boarding house, just as I came in, and there was the most incredible rumours about him in town, too.
Do you know, I heard that too, but I could have sworn he went straight home.
What did they say at the boarding house?
I didn't gather anything definite. Either they didn't know very much, or they stopped talking when they saw me. And as for asking, I didn't dare do that.
Let's hope you misunderstood them then, eh?
No, I am certain it was he that they were talking about. And as I heard it, they said something about the hospital, or...
The hospital?
No, that can't be true.
Oh, I'm so dreadfully worried about him. So I went to his lodgings and I asked for him there.
Could you bring yourself to do that thing?
There didn't seem to be anything else for me to do. I didn't feel as though I could bear the uncertainty any longer.
But you didn't find him there either, did you, eh?
No. The people there didn't know anything about him. They said he hadn't been home since yesterday afternoon.
Yesterday? Fancy they're saying that.
Oh, I think there can only be one explanation. Something dreadful must have happened to him.
Hedda, suppose I were to go in and make some inquiries.
No, don't get yourself mixed up in this business.
Oh, it's you, Judge.
Yes, it was imperative for me to see you this evening.
I can see that you had Aunt Julie's news.
Yes, I've heard that too.
Isn't it sad?
Dear Tesman, it depends on how you look at it.
Has something else happened?
Yes, something else.
Anything sad, Mr. Brack?
Mrs. Tesman, that depends on how you look at it too.
Is it something about Ejlert Lovborg?
What makes you think that, madam? Have you heard anything already?
No, not at all, but I...
Oh, good heavens, man, tell us.
Very sorry to say, but Ejlert Lovborg has been taken to the hospital. As a matter of fact, he's dying.
Oh, God!
In hospital? And dying?
So quickly then.
And we parted in anger.
Come now, Thea.
I must go to him. I must see him alive.
It won't be of any use, my dear lady. Nobody's allowed to see him.
Well, at least tell me what's happened. What is the matter?
Surely he never did it himself then, eh?
I'm sure he did.
Hedda, how can you?
Fortunately, you have guessed quite right, Mrs. Tesman.
Oh, how terrible.
So he did it himself. Think of it.
Shot himself.
Rightly guessed again, Mrs. Tesman.
When did it happen, Mr. Brack?
This afternoon, between 3 and 4.
Where did it take place then, eh?
Where? I suppose at his lodgings.
No, that can't be right, because I was there between 6 and 7.
Somewhere else, then. I don't exactly know. All I know is that he was found. He had shot himself in the chest.
Just think of it. That he should end like this.
Was it in the chest then?
Yes, that's what I said.
Not in the temple?
In the chest, Mrs. Tesman.
Well, the chest is a good place too, I suppose.
How do you mean, Mrs. Tesman?
Oh, nothing.
And the wound is dangerous, you say?
The wound is absolutely fatal. Most likely it's all over already.
Yes. I feel sure it is.
But Brack, how did you find out all this then?
From one of the police whom I had occasion to speak to.
Something done at last.
Good heavens, what are you saying, Hedda?
That there is an element of beauty in all this.
Mrs. Tesman?
I love beauty. Fancy that.
How can you talk of beauty in a thing like this?
Ejlert Lovborg has balanced his account with himself. He has had the courage to do what had to be done.
No, don't ever believe it happened like that. What he has done was done in a moment of madness.
Done in despair.
It was not. Of that I am certain.
Yes, it was. In a moment of madness, just as when he tore up the manuscript.
Manuscript? The book, do you mean? Has he torn that up?
Yes, he did it last night.
Oh, Hedda, we shall never get clear of this business.
That was odd.
But fancy Ejlert going out of the world like that and not even leaving behind the thing. The book that would have made his name immortal.
If only we could put it together again.
Yes, if only we could. I don't know what I wouldn't give.
Oh, perhaps we can, Mr. Tesman.
What do you mean, Mrs. Elvsted?
Well, look here. I kept some of the loose notes that he used for dictation from.
Oh, you've kept them, eh?
Yes, I brought them with me when I came away, and they've been lying in my handbag.
Well, just let me see them.
But they're all in such a muddle, all mixed up together.
But fancy if we could get it straight, though. Perhaps if we help each other.
Oh, let's try at any rate.
It shall be done. It must. I will give my life to this.
You, Jorgen, your life.
Yes, or rather, all of my spare time. My own stuff must wait for the present. You understand, Hedda, eh? This is something I owe to Ejlert's memory.
Yes, perhaps it is.
And so, my dear Mrs. Elvsted, we shall pull ourselves together. Heaven knows there's no use brooding over what's done. We must make our minds as calm as possible, and...
Yes, I will do the best I can.
Well, come along. We shall begin at once. Where shall we sit? Here? No, in the bathroom, in there. Judge, you must excuse me. Come now, Mrs. Elvsted.
Dear Lord, if only it could be done.
What a feeling of release it gives one, Mr. Brack, this business with Ejlert Lovborg.
Release, Madam Hedda? Certainly is a release for him.
I mean, for me. A feeling of release in knowing that there is still such a thing in the world as free and fearless action. Something irradiated with spontaneous beauty.
Dearest Madam Hedda.
Oh, yes, I know what you're going to say, because you're a professional man too in your way, like, oh well.
Ejlert Lovborg meant more to you than perhaps you are willing to admit to yourself. Or am I wrong there?
I don't answer that kind of question. All I know is that Ejlert Lovborg had the courage to live life in his own way. And now this great deed with all its beauty, that he had the strength and the will to break away from the feast of life, and so early.
I'm very sorry. I must deprive you of your pretty illusion.
Illusion?
Which you would have been deprived of soon in any case.
And what is that?
He did not shoot himself intentionally.
Not intentionally?
No. This affair of Ejlert Lovborg didn't happen quite as I described it.
Have you been keeping something back? What is it?
For poor Mrs. Elvsted's sake, I did make one or two slight modifications.
What were they?
Well, in the first place, he's actually dead already.
In hospital?
Yes, and without regaining consciousness.
What else did you keep back?
The fact that the thing didn't happen at his lodgings.
Well, that hardly makes much difference.
Oh, it does, rather, for I must tell you, Ejlert Lovborg was found shot in Mademoiselle Diana's boudoir.
That's impossible, Mr. Brack. He can't have been there again today.
He was there this afternoon. He came back to demand something that he said they had taken from him. He talked wildly about a child that had been lost.
So that was what?
Well, perhaps it might have been the manuscript, but I gather he destroyed that himself, so it must have been his wallet.
Yes, it must have been that. And it was there, then, that he was found?
Yes, there. Discharged pistol that had gone off in his breast pocket. The shot had wounded him fatally.
In the chest, yes.
No. It hit him in the stomach.
That too. The ridiculous and the sordid lies like a curse on everything I so much as touched.
There's something more, Madam Hedda. Something that could also be classed as sordid.
What is that?
The pistol that he had on him.
Yes, what about it?
Must have stolen.
And that's not true. That he did not.
No other explanation is possible. He must have stolen it. Now, hush.
Hedda, Look here, it's almost impossible for me to see in there under that hanging lamp. Just think.
Yes, I am.
Listen, I wonder if you would mind our sitting at your writing table for a little while, eh?
No, I don't mind. No, wait a minute, let me tidy it up first.
There's no need for that. There's plenty of room.
No, just let me tidy it, I tell you. I'll take all this and put it in on the piano for the time being. There. Well, my precious Thea, how is Ejlert Lovborg's memorial getting on?
Dear Lord, it looks as though it'll be terribly difficult to straighten out.
But it must be done. There's nothing else for it. And this, getting another man's papers in order, it's just a job for me.
What was it you said about the pistol?
You must have stolen it.
Why precisely stole it?
Any other explanation ought to be impossible, Madam Hedda.
Really?
Of course. Ejlert Lovborg was here this morning, wasn't he?
Yes.
Were you alone with him?
Yes, for a time.
Didn't you go out of the room while he was here?
No.
Think it over. You never out of it for a moment?
Well, perhaps just for a moment out in the hall.
And where was your pistol case in the meantime?
I kept that in. I had it locked.
Well, Madam Hedda?
It was there on the writing table.
And have you looked since to see whether both pistols are there?
No.
Well, there's no need. I saw the pistol Ejlert Lovborg had, and I knew it again at once. From yesterday, from longer ago, too.
Have you got it?
No. The police have it.
What will the police do with the pistol?
See if they can trace the owner.
Do you think they can find out?
No, Hedda Gabler. Not so long as I keep silence.
And if you do not keep silence, what then?
There's always the other way out. The pistol was stolen.
Rather death.
It's the kind of thing one says. One doesn't do it.
Now, supposing the pistol isn't stolen and the owner is discovered, then what happens?
Hedda, what happens then is a scandal.
Scandal?
Scandal. Yes, the thing you have such a deadly fear of. Of course, you'll have to appear in court, both you and Mademoiselle Diana. So you'll have to explain how the thing happened, whether it was accident or homicide. Did he try to pull the pistol from his pocket to threaten her, and is that how it went off? Or did she snatch the pistol from his hand, shoot him, and put it back into his pocket again? She's quite equal to that. She's a hefty young woman, that same Mademoiselle Diana.
But all these repulsive details don't concern me.
No, but you will have to answer the question. Why did you give Ejlert Lovborg the pistol? And what conclusions will people draw from the fact that you did give it to him?
That's true, I didn't think of that.
Fortunately, there is no danger, so long as I see nothing.
So I am in your power, Mr. Brack. From now on, you have a hold over me.
My dearest Madam Hedda, believe me, I shall not abuse the position.
But in your power all the same, and at the mercy to your will and demands, and so a slave. A slave? No. That's what I cannot tolerate, never.
Yet one usually manages to tolerate the inevitable.
Yes, possibly. Well, is it getting on all right then, Jorgen, eh?
Oh, well, the Lord only knows, my dear. In any case, there's months of work there.
Doesn't it feel strange to you, Thea? Here you are sitting with Jorgen Tesman just as you once sat with Ejlert Lovborg.
Well, only I could inspire your husband too.
Oh, that'll come all right. In time.
Yes, do you know, Hedda, I really do think I'm beginning to feel something of the kind. But you go back and sit down again with Judge Brack, eh?
Is there nothing here I can help you to with?
Not a thing in the world. Would you be so kind as to keep Hedda company for the time being, my dear Judge?
Give me the very greatest pleasure.
Thanks, but I'm tired tonight. I will go in for a while and lie down on the sofa in there.
Yes, do, my dear, eh?
What is that?
Dance music. Hey now, don't play dance Aunt Rena, and of Ejlert too.
And of Aunt Julle and of all the rest of them. I will be quiet in future.
It upsets her, of course, to see us at this sad task. I tell you what, Mrs. Elvsted, you shall move in with Aunt Julle, and I'll come over there in the evenings, and then we can sit and work there, eh?
Yes, I think that would be the best plan.
I can hear perfectly well what you're saying, but how am I going to get through the evenings out here?
Oh, I'm sure Judge Brack would be kind enough to come out and see you.
Yes, I shall call over each and every evening in order to keep you company, Mrs. Tesman.
I bet you're looking forward to that immensely, my dear Judge.
We shall waste away the hours. A glass of whiskey, or a game of chess, perhaps.
Perhaps. Although I've recently discovered that I've never been too lucky at chess.
We shall find some way to amuse ourselves, you and I.
You have it all planned out. Every little detail, every last move. Checkmate indeed.
Ah, now she's playing with those pistols again. Shot herself. Shot herself in the temple. Think of it.
Worshipful God. One doesn't do that kind